Welcome to the MSDW podcast. I'm Jason Gumpert, editor at msdynamicsworld.com and mscloudnews.com. On this episode, we are talking about Inspire 2021's top announcements around Azure services and programs. I'm joined by my editorial team colleague, Eamon McCarthy-Earls, as well as our guest, Microsoft MVP, Gordon McKenna. He is CTO of public cloud at Microsoft partner Ensono. Gordon shares his perspective on customer needs as they relate to hybrid cloud and how that translates into momentum both for Microsoft services like Azure Arc, AKS, and Lighthouse, and on updated programs for partners that reflect the changing cloud migration interests of companies. We also touch on implications of other areas like advances in Teams, the introduction of Windows 365, and some of the broader trends in containerization. There is a lot to cover, so let's get into it. Gordon, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Really good to be with you again.
Yeah, great to talk to you again. It's been a busy week. Could we maybe just ask you to give just a little bit of an introduction about yourself and the work that you do?
No problems, yeah. So Gordon McKenna, CTO of public cloud for Ensono. So that's a multifaceted role. I look after our Microsoft relationship, hence me being on here talking to you about Inspire this week. I also get involved with a little bit of the technology direction in the business around public cloud, which is why obviously Inspire is such a big event for me, because I'm trying to kind of work out where our best bets should be as a business. You know, what are our customers going to be interested in? What should we be kind of getting more technical expertise in? But I also, get involved with a little bit of sales and delivery from time to time, and marketing and everything else in between.
Right. Well, it certainly has been. I should also mention you're also a Microsoft MVP, right? And recently renewed with the July timeframe here.
Yeah. So it's my 17th MVP award. I think I'm actually now officially one of the veterans in the program, but got my original award back in 2005. So still as humbled as I was when I got the first award to get it, because it's a very exclusive club, and it's in recognition of people that have been helping out in the community or like to impart their kind of knowledge and information on other people, which I love to do because I'm very passionate about the technology that I get involved with. So yeah, very, very honored and very humbled, and big thanks to Microsoft for recognizing me again.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, as you mentioned, with when it comes to Inspire this week, and I guess Microsoft's plans in the cloud in general, I mean, there's just so much to potentially take in here. I thought we could start with an area that you've mentioned that you pay close attention to, which is sort of the hybrid cloud story. What were some of the highlights of coming out of Inspire that relate to technology that supports the hybrid cloud needs that you see for your clients?
Yeah, I mean, great question. I mean, Ensono, my company, is a hybrid cloud managed service provider. So, traditionally, what has that kind of meant? It's meant, delivering some remote hosted, delivering some private cloud, delivering some public cloud, even delivering some managed mainframe, right, at the back end. But it's, all of that has been, some of our challenges are we have a kind of single cloud management platform, our ITSM solution, and you're almost feeding from kind of different silos, different reporting mechanisms, different types of tools. So, the nirvana for us would be how do we kind of find one platform to manage them all? And we're getting better at that. We're looking at stuff that's in the market that we can bring in to make that better, but one thing that we've been really exceptional at through the fact that there's been exceptional technology for it is we've been really good at providing governance for Azure for our clients, right? So we're very deep on Azure policies. I have to say, Microsoft have done a really good job of diving in. I've heard a lot this week from Inspire, where Microsoft talk about them being the trusted cloud. They're focused on security. And, policy management is one area of that. And, Microsoft introduced Arc, a while ago. We were one of the early adopters for that. And Arc really allows you to bring the control plane from the cloud into the data center, onto on-premise. It's really about bringing the cloud to closer to you, right? Now we've traditionally done that by and still do that today, and probably will continue to do that by providing a private cloud. But we have a lot of customers that are cloud first now, that are looking for us giving the experience we have on public cloud to our to the on-premises, because it's not untypical for us to manage remote hosted stuff with our customers, stuff in a data center, stuff in a private cloud, and stuff in a public cloud. So, Arc really allows us to take that goodness, that patching, that security management that we have in the public cloud, that governance, and bring that on-prem and apply that in a consistent manner. So, for example, one of the great things that our customers love about cloud is the ability to tag resources. It sounds like a really simple kind of basic thing, but tagging is something that traditionally has only been available in the cloud. So and it's very useful because you can tag patching schedules and backup routines and disaster recovery scenarios. You can tag that to an agent so that we can use automated tools to apply a process against that. So, Arc allows us to bring tagging on-prem, and it allows us to bring Windows patching on-prem. It allows us to bring policy governance on-prem, right? Which means that goodness that we've built, that expertise we built up in the cloud, we can now apply that against, non-cloud type scenarios. And that's a massive thing. I mean, that's really around bringing the cloud control plane in, on-premise, and, where you have customers that have data gravity, or require data gravity or data sovereignty, we can bring Arc in to do that. And actually, some of the announcements, this has been exciting for us, but some of the announcements at Inspire have been around bringing SQL PaaS together with Arc. So being able to deliver SQL PaaS, SQL management has always been a complex thing, right? Building clusters on-prem, managing those clusters, bringing the tools in. But, Microsoft have now bought SQL PaaS to on-prem. So we can now, put a layer above our databases that allows us to scale them in a very cloud-like way. And that's just been announced that's, available through Arc. And the other good thing with Arc as well for us is we are a big Lighthouse user. So Lighthouse is a managed service provider tool. And one of the other announcements from Inspire was around SQL PaaS being available not only with Arc, but that management of that being available through Lighthouse. Now, Lighthouse is basically been very successful for us. It's a service provider tool. It allows us to manage multiple Azure instances on behalf of the customer, and it allows us to do very defined security controls on them. So we work in a lot of regulated industries like healthcare, like finance. So Lighthouse allows us to give very granular control of our engineers, which meets the need of high trust or HIPAA or PCI DSS for a lot of our clients. So those are very interesting to me. Alongside, the Azure Stack HCI, right, which Microsoft announced some new options around Azure Stack HCI as well as more integration with Azure Arc, and obviously then through Lighthouse, right? So lots of the things that started off life as separate products seem to be coming together, and it's great for me to see Microsoft properly embracing hybrid cloud. In the early days when Microsoft were all in on the public cloud, it seemed public cloud or bust, right? Now I'm hearing Microsoft talking about, well, we recognize that 90% of our customers are going to end up in some kind of hybrid cloud scenario, and we want to own that hybrid cloud with the customer. And I think, that's great for me to hear Microsoft saying that, being a hybrid cloud provider, because that's very much what the world that we live in.
Yeah, one of my observations as it relates to was how much some of these announcements interrelated, as you've already said. I just wonder how much that's even driving the product planning at this point. And it seems like a complex challenge for Microsoft product managers to coordinate some of those relationships between the services.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's very interesting. When I first came on board with Ensono were very much data center hosting, a little bit of public cloud, but very much with public cloud. Ensono, like customers, were trying to implement public cloud in the way that they've traditionally been doing hosting. A lot of our customers were doing that, right? Today, now, and by the way, public cloud, one of the big ways that you operate public cloud is DevOps, right? It's the run fast, fail fast. It's the being able to scale stuff up and down really quickly. And that, we're finding with our customers that they need an agile approach, with public cloud. And we definitely see that. And now I'm starting to see my business adopting DevOps in the data center, DevOps on mainframe. So that, DevOps being a way of working in an agile manner in cloud is now starting to become mainstream on-prem. And it isn't a surprise to me that a lot of the cloud technologies like policy governance, like tagging, like the way that you patch in cloud, the way that you DR cloud, it's not a surprise to me to see people wanting to adopt them on-prem. And I think that's, the big twist from Microsoft. I think, where everything had to kind of work in the cloud first, I think Microsoft are more and more looking at, let's build this hybridly, right? Let's make sure that, it works up here, but we can use it in Arc and we can use it in Lighthouse and, it works on Azure Stack HCI.
On that theme, Gordon, I was just curious to ask how things like API management, Event Grid, and Azure Kubernetes Service sort of fit together with all of that.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, some great announcements about Azure Kubernetes Service. And not to go too left field from your question, but I love the smart defaults, which was where there's specific cluster configurations. And why I love that particular one, by the way, was because we've been deploying AKS for clients for a while now, and it's difficult always getting the right cluster configuration, right? Sometimes you'll start off with dev test. It's not uncommon for a dev test instance of Azure Kubernetes to very quickly become a production instance of Azure Kubernetes. That's just the way people work in an agile way. So, being able to deploy stuff right first time or in a configuration that you can plan is very good. And, that's some of those scenarios, auto-scaling, availability zones, Azure Monitor, those types of things were specific scenarios that I felt were great and well overdue. I mean, on the Event Grid, I mean, this is a common customer scenario. I think Event Grid is particularly with the onset of edge computing and, the massive influx of collection of data from IoT devices that we're seeing experience and is growing. Being able to scale Event Grid in a more, a more seamless way and a more cloudy way, right? Was well overdue. So bringing in AKS as an event source for Azure Event Grid was really good. It brings, again, you mentioned, I think, about Microsoft bringing stuff together. Right, this is an exact way that AKS is brought close to Event Grid. You can automate AKS operations. You can subscribe to specific events as well. So very good that Microsoft are looking in the stack and looking at how customers are using their technology and looking at better together scenarios for that as well. And one thing I will say, we've been talking together. I remember, speaking to this team here about containerization probably 2 or 3 years ago, right? And saying containerization is going to happen. And, has it happened at the pace that I thought it was going to happen? No, but you're going to see an explosion in containerization alongside an explosion in microservices, over the next 12 to 18 months. Without doubt, we're seeing a massive uptake in our customer base. We are, driving our skill sets, driving our knowledge, We've just bought a company in the UK called Amido, who are specialists in Kubernetes. They build a cloud native development stack on Kubernetes, which is called Amido Stacks. And we're seeing that as being the core infrastructure stack that customers are wanting to build on. So I'm definitely looking at thinking of an explosion in this, and I think Microsoft are not, this, right? They have all of the stats and what people are deploying, and I think a lot of these lean-ins towards certain technologies is in response for what Microsoft. One thing I love about Microsoft, they're always good at predicting the curve, and I think this is what you're seeing. You're seeing Microsoft responding to that.
One of the big developments we saw at Inspire this year was some of the shifts around sort of Azure migration for partners. What do you see as the significance of these, and what are some of the technologies driving these changes?
Yeah, great question. I mean, we're a Microsoft Azure expert MSP. I think if you're a good partner with a good Microsoft partner, if you're not an Azure expert MSP, you're not in the top level of partners. We're going through the audit right now. It's tougher and tougher each year. But, part of that is we get access to this AMP program, which previously was called the Azure Migration Program. It's now called the Azure Migration and Modernization Program. Initially, the AMP program kind of covered a small number of scenarios, right? It covered, IaaS migration, as you'd probably expect. And there's still a lot of that going on. I think more customers are wanting to transform than migrate now. But what we started to see last year was things like WVD, Windows Virtual Desktop, and which is now Azure Virtual Desktop, pop into that program. And I think Microsoft recognized now that customers don't really just want to lift and shift in anymore, right? Hello, surprise, surprise. They want to be able to migrate databases into, SQL PaaS, or they might, want, and there's my Teams app going off in the background, another great Microsoft tool. They want to be able to, they want to be able to migrate, an Oracle database to Postgres SQL, right? Real common scenario we're seeing with clients. So, these kind of new types of migration scenarios, and also, by the way, we've got an explosion in data, right? I talk about containerization being a massive, big thing. I think, the next 12 months is going to be the year of data. I've been banging on about this for 3 years as well. But I think definitely I'm seeing a massive increase of data projects in my clients now as well. So, expanding that program to cover a customer that wants to lift and shift data, for example, not just infrastructure, is a big thing. And of course, Azure Arc that I was talking about has also been included in that program as well. It's not surprising me. Things that I would like to see added to that are mainframe migration. We're doing a lot of mainframe migration. I'd like to see, that recognized as another platform that people are migrating off, because I think that's going to be massive over the next year as well.
That's interesting. I mean, we've certainly covered a little bit of the mainframe opportunity. It seems like there's more there in terms of cloud migration than maybe some people would appreciate. So you're saying you'd like to see even more emphasis from Microsoft to support that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're seeing a lot of people kind of moving iSeries to the cloud, which is Microsoft have kind of solutions for that. I think mainframe, I think a lot more legacy and IT type scenarios, which is the world we live in. We specialize in Ensono at managing very complex clients with, large legacy IT estates. So I think, and there's still quite a lot of it out there, a lot of old IT out there, right? So I think, it'd be good to see those scenarios. I've no doubt that program will expand, over time. I mean, big announcement this year was a lot of talk around containerization on the migration front. There was talks about new tools around helping with migrating to containers. And as I mentioned kind of, a short time ago, I think containerization is going to be massive. So, there is support now in AMP for those types of scenarios, as well as new scenarios around that as well. So, great programs for partners to go and get funding with, to get support from experts with, to make customers feel, they've got the right set of partners and resources around them.
When Microsoft changes the nature of some of those programs, so specifically you can't ignore that. Is what I would take away from that as well, from what you're saying. The significance is very real for the
definitely.
AMP and the AAAP.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you were a new partner coming in and looking at the Microsoft landscape, Inspire is a great, if you read between the lines on some of the changes they've made, it tells you all you need to know about what technologies you should be making your bets on. Right. And I suppose that, that goes from a customer point of view, customers, understanding what technologies other customers are using, Microsoft tilt to what their customers want, right? Very customer centric organization. So, just look at the announcements around Teams, right? Collaborative apps coming to Microsoft Teams. They talked about, Dynamics 365 integration with Teams. And, Teams started off life as a collaboration tool, right? Let's not forget it. It kind of was born out of really SharePoint and Skype. Teams is a platform that I live in. Me and my team live in, right? I do everything in it. I communicate in it. I do calls. I collaborate in Teams. Being able to bring other solutions, as you can hear, Teams going off in the background, despite me trying to silence it. But it's bringing important things to me, right? And the pandemic, right, has kind of bought Teams. I think Microsoft were showing some figures. I think it's 100 and, it might be 145 million users or something like that. It might even be more, but they were showing the exponential growth in Teams right since the pandemic, and the Teams is becoming, what was it they called it? They were calling Teams the front end. Which is Teams is the new front end. And I believe that it's my front end, right? It's my business's front end. It's my front end with my customers, and it's quite often their front end. So interesting what situations can do, and I think, Teams was always going to be a big product for Microsoft, but I think it's increased trajectory because of the pandemic and the fact that the world's never going to be the same again, right? We're always going to have people working from home. And I think a lot of people didn't trust home working. I think people understand home working works now. Definitely, on a personal note, I've been much more productive being at home. I still like being back in the office and having that social interaction, right? But home working's been, very successful for me and for our business, right? So, the world has changed. By the way, while I'm talking about that, one of the announcements that I was very excited about was Microsoft 365.
Windows 365?
Windows 365. Thank you for that, Microsoft 365. Note to Microsoft, please don't put anything with 365 on the end of it. It's getting confusing as it is. But Windows 365. So we are what has been most successful for us in cloud, right? Apart from moving clients to the cloud, over the pandemic, it's been remote working solutions. We were already a Citrix in Azure partner, and we've done a lot of Citrix in Azure, right? A lot of going in and helping our clients expand. But WVD has been a massive success for us. Now AVD, we actually own the advanced specialization for WVD, another big thing that everybody was talking about at Inspire. But the Microsoft 365, Windows 365, brings a desktop as a SaaS service, right? So, we're already, do I think it's going to take away the need for AVD? No, I think, Windows 365, it's quite interesting. Has WVD or AVD taken away the need for some of our clients to deploy Citrix? No, because Citrix is an enterprise-ready solution with a lot of features that aren't available in WVD, right? So we've got lots of organizations that are running Citrix and AVD together. But I think it's going to be the same thing with Windows 365. I think, it's going to suit the needs of a lot of people. And there may be a lot of AVD users that move to Windows 365, but I think Microsoft talk about it, it's simpler. It's a simple version, it's SaaS. And I think there will still be a lot of people wanting to deploy AVD. We provide a lot of third-party add-ons for AVD in our managed AVD solution that Ensono does. So, I think that those additional requirements, we call it enhanced AVD because we bring third-party solutions in and we use our own scripts. I think there'll always be a requirement to have that extended, enhanced solution. But it's very interesting. Again, something I was expecting Microsoft to do at some point, do the Windows 365, and it'll be a huge success for Microsoft as well, because in the home remote solutions, a lot of the issues you've got with providing remote access for workers, you've got to provide them with PCs, and then they're using that privately, and then the security risks with that. Being able to provide a secure desktop in the cloud. So in your PC at home, you can do what you like locally, but if you want to connect to, the business, you have to go to this remote desktop and you have to pass these checks. And, you can only use, the business apps on that cloud-based OS. I think that's going to be very popular. I think a lot of security teams are going to like that type of scenario.
Excellent. Well, yeah. And I listened in on at least one Windows 365 presentation at Inspire, and there were a lot of questions. You've actually just touched on a lot of the issues, so I really appreciate that. Yeah, and Gordon, thanks so much for taking the time today. Eamon, thanks for being here as well.
Great to be here with both of you.
Yeah, thank you. Great. Always great talking to you guys. So appreciate asking me to come on.
This has been another episode of the MSDW podcast. My thanks once again to Gordon McKenna for joining us today. If you have ideas for future episodes or comments, please feel free to reach out, jgumpert@msdynamicsworld.com. You can also follow us for all our updates on LinkedIn and on Twitter. And that's it for this episode. Until next time, this is MS Dynamics World, signing off.